What's happening, everybody? Happy Monday. It's your man, Damon Cunningham, aka Dame D NYDC. We back with another episode of Two Mics Up. And today's guest that's going to be joining me on the other mic, gentleman has a vast background, if you will, from acting, writing, producing, podcasting. I just caught wind of sounds like wrestling too. I mean, just a whole plethora of things that you find out, when you get to meet a guest and really have time to sit down and talk with them. And that's what we're going to do today. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring today's guest to the other mic. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Matt Van Bodegraven, aka Graveyard. Graveyard, how we doing today, my friend?
Good, good. Work's done for the weekend, so I'm excited. I can focus on all things horror now.
Okay. And see that's what we're going to get into, graveyard. And you have, like I said, such a vast background in the industry, but you've really, I guess, drilled down, if you will, on the horror piece, and we're going to get to that. But I
Mhm.
have to start in the beginning. We
Yes.
we can't get to where we are today without going back. And Matt, give us some background as to who you are, where
Mhm.
you grew up, what were some of the things that you like to do? Like, just introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah. So like I said, we'll dive into more things horror, but I really got my background in a lot of this stuff back in high school, and really when I started watching my first horror movies is I've always been kind of a person to want to emulate what you see in movies, right? So I remember
Mhm.
watching Halloween for the first time, and my buddy had a camcorder. We go, all right, we're probably like 11. We go, we're gonna make our own movie.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay.
So it kind of started at that point in time where you're like, all right, we got the Michael Myers mask, we got the overalls, and one of us played Donald Pleasance,
Oh, wow.
Dr. Loomis.
Wow.
And I was born in the 80s, raised on slashers and horror movies of the
Hmm.
80s and 90s, and I really haven't looked back since.
Wow.
Despite having like a 15ish year gap here in
Right.
my life of not doing shorts and skits and movies.
Right. That's awesome, man. Because I mean, a lot of times, we all like to go to the movies. We get our little popcorn, and we like to sit there. This is usually my wife and I. Like
Hmm.
tonight, this is what we'll be doing: sitting down, looking for some horror movies. We love horror movies, and we grew up on it. And that was one of the things that really interests me. And I want to say thank you to Stephen Joyner for making this
Hmm.
connection. One of the things that we talked about that really interests me, and with all of the different things that you really do, though, graveyard, like, how do you approach like balancing, all of these hats and all of these roles? Because it's got to be, I can imagine what a day sometimes may look like for you. So how do
Hmm.
you balance approaching these roles as an actor, writer, and producer?
Very carefully with my wife's approval.
Smart man, smart man. I know, I understand, smart man.
With the shows that I do and everything like that. So I've been on a couple of YouTube channels and shows for a couple of years now. And what we always determine with my wife and I go, hey, I work a day, job 40 hours a
Right.
week. But let's say in 2023, I did about 320 live shows
Wow.
on the
Wow.
internet. I was
Wow.
doing it 6 to 7 days a week, and which is honestly was way too much.
Yeah.
But with my kids too, I go, okay, I get off of work, then it's homework time, then it's family dinner time, and then when the kids kind of get ready for bed, I go, okay, now I will stay up till 1 a.m. and start working
Right.
on everything else.
Right. Right. So I'm curious too, because again, I'm not in as deep as
Hmm.
you, but I understand, the work. But do you find um that these different skills though really actually help complement each other? And now that you've been doing it for a while, do you find like, it's easier to kind of hit a stride, or if you have an idea to kind of complete an idea
Hmm.
because of how these roles complement? And what does that feel like for you? Like, because I know the sense of accomplishment that I get now, where before, man, I'd be sitting there for 4 or 5 hours. Well, now that idea, I hit it and I run with it. It really
Hmm.
feels great. So what is that for you? Tying those three together to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's like I said, I do a white collar job. I do IT work, and
Mm-hmm.
not very chance of being creative. So over a
Right.
number of years, I started brewing beer to be creative, and it's just something
Okay.
get away from IT, right? So there's
Okay.
nothing more away from IT than just literally watching water boil
Right.
and, and making beer. Um, but a few before COVID happened, my buddy and I, he goes, "Hey, you have every video game system ever made just right over here to my
Mm,
left." He's like, "We
mhm.
should do a history of a game and the characters and play through all the games." I go, "Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and do that." So I started recording all that stuff, and I started editing again.
Mhm.
And I go, "This is pretty fun." And I just jumped in some Discord servers and was talking to
Right.
editors. And I met Mezzo, that's her online persona, and she introduced
Uh-huh.
me to other YouTube channels that have like 40 million subscribers, being part of their
Right.
chats, getting to know them.
Right. Right.
And then she goes, a couple of years ago, she goes, "Hey, you started a horror podcast." I go, "Yeah." She's like, "Do you want to be on our show?"
That's
Okay.
awesome.
So,
Mhm.
my career, and what I did behind the scenes was, in high school, I was an actor, did 4 years of theater and drama, 4 years of the plays themselves. I started
Right.
writing and directing then too. And I went, instead of being in front of people, I went behind the camera, if you
Behind
will,
the
behind
scene.
the
Yeah.
audience. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then doing the shows I've been doing for a couple of years ago, you know what? I can be in front of the camera again. So, getting back in that strive of being in front of the camera, being personable, especially on our
Mhm.
family shows, not cussing.
Right.
um,
Right.
and just
Right.
really
Right.
and really training back up. And by doing these shows, I met people in the independent horror world.
Mm.
And so they
Awesome.
go, "You have a vast knowledge of horror movies." I go, "I do." I have that podcast I've been doing, for a number of years. And so
Mhm.
I just worked my way into that world again.
Mhm.
So, and now I'm going, all right, I like what I'm seeing. I'm helping direct, I'm helping write stuff. They go, this is what I want to see happen in the movie. So,
Right.
you know, we did something last July that I wrote about 60-ish% of. And I go,
Mhm.
you know what? Yeah, that's fine. I was in the makeup chair for an hour and a half. I was bloodied up, but also directing from the ground as my dead body was there.
Oh,
And
wow.
so,
Wow. Oh,
so
oh, wow.
it's been this amalgamation of everything, of getting used to being in front of the camera, getting used to talking to people, and just running with it.
Man, that's awesome, man. Like I can't just listening to it, I get an adrenaline rush.
Hmm.
Uh just from hearing like all the things because it's your creation, but you're immersed in the creation, right?
Right.
And what what has that really taken to where now, like when we look at horror, like so you were inspired to do horror at a young
Hmm.
age, but what is that? What has that inspired you now? Like, has it given you even with your knowledge of horror and the work that you've done, has it spurned on even more? And I don't want to say crazy, but more crazy horror ideas that maybe you're chomping at the bit to kind of work to bring to fruition.
Yeah, it absolutely has taken hold of me. And like I said, with the podcast I do, we review 3 to 4 movies a week, and we've been doing this.
Wow.
We've done 120 episodes now of that.
Okay.
So
Wow. All
we
right.
reviewed a lot of movies for stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I missed growing up, and all the new stuff that comes out too. And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of take that review process and go, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Here's the high budget movies, here's the low budget movies. What can I
Mm-hmm.
work in to get to a point of something that I have never seen, that really
Mm.
hasn't been done? So
Mm.
that's kind of my process. When I'm writing some of the shorts I'm doing now, some of the trilogy I want to work on, and he goes, what hasn't been done? What
Been
hasn't
done.
been seen? I
Wow.
mean, quite honestly, a lot has been done, but you try to
Right.
make it your own. I just go, okay, I'll write it out. I go, I'll hit up my co-hosts and people part of the production team on and go, okay, has anyone else seen this, to make sure I'm
Right.
not, you know, subconsciously copying someone.
Copying something else. Yeah. And that's
Yeah, I
got to
mean,
be difficult, man. Right. Like
mhm.
that creative juice. But and it's funny you mentioned that because I was just saying to my wife and like we see so many things. It's like, dang, didn't we just watch? Like it has that similar and eerie feel. And like for you and your team, like is that really one of the key things that you really try to focus in on? Is not to make sure that you're copying or regurgitating someone else's work just with different
Right.
names, and they, man, that's got to
Yeah.
be frustrating. Like, because I would love to be in the room and know what that conversation is like. Like, do you guys just go hard at each other? Like, dude, come on, like Graveyard, what are you doing? Like, I mean, what is a production schedule look like, or meeting look like for you guys?
We really, what happens is we have there's 6 of us in the Horror Dads production team, and
Okay,
there's 3 of us in the Reno area, and there's 3 of us in the Chicago, Illinois area. I'm part of
okay,
the Chicago side, so we're the east side. So we have a chat, like we're talking movie ideas. Well, someone will write a script and we'll pass it along before we do any cast, anything like that, and just get
gotcha.
eyes on the project and go,
Right,
well, we're reading the scene. It's like, okay, what about this? We might be missing this to help set up something down the road.
down the
Or if
road.
we go
Mm.
right, if we go, we're gonna have Occam's razor, we're gonna have the show, don't tell. It just
Mm.
the things that you want to do in the movie making process of, does this make sense, or does this
Right.
come out of nowhere?
Okay.
Because there's so many movies that go, oh, and here's this device to defeat this evil thing.
Right. Right. Like,
Where'd that
dude.
come from?
Right.
They
There's
never
no
set it
background.
up.
There's no story. Right.
Yeah.
There's no storyline to tie that thing,
Mm-hmm.
to how. Okay, I got so that makes all the sense in the world. And Graveyard, you have so many different things, but I want to talk about conversations in the void, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't mind for a second, because
Yeah.
that from the bits, and we did our best to try to do our homework, but it was very like existential type topics, I guess, if you will, right? And like, how do you prepare for those type of deep discussions when you're kind of coming from a horror
Mm-hmm.
to a little bit more of a deeper discussion, I guess, if you will. And I'm curious to know from you, like, how did you get into that and prepare for those discussions? But I want to also dive into, what insight, like, was there ever a conversation with a guest or, one of your friends or family that really gave you some insight that even surprised yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, we typically talk to people in the horror world, where they're writers, actors, directors, anyone and everyone, right? We even
Mm-hmm.
had a gentleman on this week that was telling his ghost story. And
Right.
that's all he wanted to tell. So, like I said, when I have someone on, I like to do research, but wherever the conversation goes, that's where we go with it, right? I could have a list of 10 questions over here that I go, okay, I wanted to get to these and, hopefully get to them, but it's just, like I said, it's just that conversation. So
Right.
it is you never know where it's going to go, quite honestly. You can talk about, like, oh, someone did the movie Fire in the Sky. Well, I don't like to
Right.
talk about that because I was going through a hellish divorce then.
All right.
Okay, well,
Okay.
if you want to touch on that and talk about the movie, we can. If you want to skip to something else, we can.
We can. Right.
But I also have people that talk about their experiences while making movies. I had a gentleman from Canada who had supernatural things happen, maybe even alien stuff happen to
Wow.
him while preparing for the movie that he was making. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's not possible, but those are the things that what you hear sometimes. You just be like, okay, but it is not to say that some people, and I do believe that there are things that are greater than we are, and things happen that we just can't explain. But
Right.
then sometimes I say the mind too is a terrible thing. Mine
Yeah.
also makes you think things are happening that are really not happening. So
Right. And these conversations I had with people really led to a TV show that we are developing right now.
okay, all right.
And it's you've seen Ghost Hunters, you've seen Ghost Adventures and stuff like that. But what I want to do, because I'm heavily a skeptic, is I want to do like a scientific method, scientific approach to the investigation. So it's gonna be a reality show, but I feel if you have, here's 100 cases of Bigfoot existing in Chicago, Illinois, and I go, okay, that's really not going to be the case. But if I can explain away 99 of them and one you can't,
well, you can't.
right?
I
I
mean,
think that's better evidence than garbage that you
garbage.
get.
I agree.
And I never want to, when we're doing this, I never want to dismiss people's experiences or what they believe.
Right.
I also want to help give an explanation of what it could potentially be.
Understood.
And when it comes to like paranormal or ghost hunting stuff that we want to do, you're
Mm-hmm.
right. The mind is your own worst enemy in that situation.
Yeah.
So what we want to do when we're doing that is we'll have our researcher do all the research, right? But we
Mm-hmm.
will go in there not knowing the stories,
Uh,
because if we know the stories,
you
it
gotta
will
be,
happen.
yeah. I totally get it. You start with the prejudgment. You come in there. You've
Hmm.
already developed
Hmm.
your own thought pattern and judgment about what this person's story may be. So I get it. That makes full sense. Full sense.
Yeah, because the example I use is if you tell a woman if she goes into this room and at 3 a.m. the back of her left knee will be touched, and you send a woman there at 3
Mhm.
a.m., the back of her left knee is going to get touched,
Yeah.
regardless of anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's already
Yeah.
been again, like I said, the mind sometimes can do some incredible things when given information, and
Hmm.
you can really feed it to do some great things. I like that. I like that premise, man. I can't. If that's a project that you're working on, I can't wait to see that come to fruition. I would like to really
Yeah.
see that and follow along with that, because I don't want to say I don't believe, but I'm just saying, man, like, you got to prove it to me. Like,
Right.
give me some physical facts and things that I can make my own judgment, and I can battle with in my own mind to make it make sense. I like that. So good luck with that project.
Thank you.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. No, yeah, and
So
something else that we were doing with that is
mhm.
it's going to be called States Unknown. We're going to go to each state across America. We also
Okay.
want to showcase local legends and small town lore because every town
Mm.
has their ghost
As a
story.
true that, man, you onto something right there. Look, that's going to be great, man. We got to stay in touch about that. I want to know more about that stuff,
Yeah.
definitely. So, Matt, someone like working in horror,
Hmm.
and we kind of talked about you. I heard you say earlier that you and I are probably more into the slasher
Yeah.
style of horror. It's probably closer. We're closer in age, but now, from what I see and like researching, really digging in, how do you feel about like this increasing focus? It seems like on the psychological horror and the social commentary that's kind of being added in as well. You know,
Hmm.
opposed to the more traditional, slasher or supernatural type film. How do you feel
Uh,
about that?
I feel it never went away. I
Really?
feel like
Okay.
it's always been there because if you look at the original Black Christmas from 1972, I believe,
Okay. Okay.
uh, it dealt with the topic of abortion, about women's
Mm.
rights and being
Mm-hmm.
screamed at. And I always feel like a horror movie is a time capsule of that time period's fears and social commentary.
Mm.
So the
Mm.
slashers were in response to the 70s of free love and drug use. So then all
I
of a
like
sudden, all
that.
the slashers, if the rules are, if you do drugs, you have premarital sex, you
Yeah.
die.
Die. Yeah.
You
I
know,
like that.
and even
I
with
never thought of that.
yeah, and the 80s also towards the end of the 80s, we got the satanic panic. So everything
Mm.
was Satan, everything was evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, man. I never really took a moment to step back and really analyze it from the other side of
Hmm.
the same question. Never really analyzed it that way, and that's really true. I mean, you can probably go through every decade, really, and whatever the social climate is or
Hmm.
whatever is going on socially, you have that back end side of the the psychological piece, but it's really focusing on something that's going on in our daily social
Right.
community. And then, like you say, the druggie or the drug dealer or the prostitute, unfortunately, whoever, those are the ones that are being punished, and they are the victims in these movies. So that's a great point, man. Wow. Hey, you got me all messed up now. Now I got to kind of sit here and kind of refocus, man. But interestingly enough, excuse me with the tongue tie, that um the horror industry has also really evolved a lot, in
Hmm.
my opinion. And now that we have things like streaming services and a lot of the independent productions gaining more promise, how has that shift affected you, if at all? Has it helped you to gain more traction? Has it become more challenging for you as an entertainer, like just really to adapt, really, to this change, I guess, in entertainment?
Right. So yeah, streaming is a blessing and a curse.
Mm,
I'll bluntly say that.
okay.
So the way I view streaming, when Netflix started having their own streaming stuff, is to me, it's not any different than walking into your mom and pop video store in the 80s and 90s,
Right.
right? And the straight to VHS that happened in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone had a camcorder, so everyone was able to make a movie and put it to
Mm-hmm.
VHS, and you have a copy of a copy of a copy. We
Mm-hmm.
have the same thing now, except now we have a place for everyone to see it.
Mm-hmm. True.
And
True.
that has led to the rise of independent movies because everyone has a camera on them at all times.
Mm, true. 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 I mean, has that made it easier too, though, than for you? Like, let's say somebody who's heavy into creating art,
Hmm.
just by having that phone. Like sometimes, and I don't know, just throwing it out there, like you're walking or whatever, and you have an idea, and then whoop, flip your camera out, and maybe you're with your wife, your family. Hey, babe, I need you to do this. Like just as a way for you to be able to remember. Obviously it's in your mind, but sometimes that visual,
Hmm.
just to be able to catch it right then and there helps you go ahead and then build out a project? Have you ever been maybe in a situation or done that just off of seeing or hearing something?
Uh, I try not to be tied to my phone as much as
Okay.
possible, just because I have to be on it for work all the
Mm,
time.
yeah,
Um,
I understand.
but like I said, the cell phone is good and bad.
Mm,
We
mhm,
have it gives more people the ability to create a movie, but I still want different grade cameras still to
mm,
this point. But you also have cell phones that are good for someone's point of view, right? So
yeah.
they have this portable device. So especially independent horror with found footage, having a cell phone shot
Mhm,
that
mhm,
not necessarily in 4K actually adds to the movie. It adds to a found
mm,
footage style of things.
mm,
Now only been doing independent, horror movies just for about a year and a half now. I haven't
mhm,
seen that change, but I've talked to a lot of people that it definitely has changed the world. You used to have when the actors I talked to, you used to have to go in for auditions, but now everyone has a
yeah.
camera. So
Mhm.
now you have independent horror guys who are getting 2,000 uh, casting calls and people responding to calls.
Wow.
So how do you combat that? There's a lot more
Yeah.
independent, but then there's also a lot more people in the field trying to get the
Mhm.
same gig.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you find that in that sense too, like I don't want to say watered down, but by having so much, does that water down some of the work that we see? Because there's some horror films that just come out. Like I'm gonna be honest, sometimes my wife and I we spent one weekend. We watched two movies. Like you can't get those 3.5, 4 hours back.
Hmm.
Um, and do you think is it oversaturated or watered down or um like because I don't know, like I don't know, I don't want to say people don't have the skill or craft, but like is there somewhere that people can go to maybe develop a skill or a craft to kind of get better at horror movies? Like, because I sometimes, like I said, I just wonder, like, why is this so bad, and how did this get out?
Yeah, I mean, it's really is a miracle that movies do get made still to
Hmm.
this day.
Right,
Because it is a process. It's still a
right.
vision that you have to do.
Hmm.
And I love independent stuff because honestly, that's where the creativity comes from.
Right.
You
Mm.
may not have the best special effects.
Right.
However, if you have a fantastic story and compelling characters, it doesn't
That
matter what
part.
your special effects are. You can
That
have
part.
$15,000, you can have $15 million.
Hmm.
It's I
Storyline.
Yeah, I'd rather see the independent creative that has to work for it than the studio that makes Conjuring 10.
Mm. And no, I agree, and that's why I asked because I mean I want to see independent and
Mhm.
artists and creators work because I like you said, but it's the storyline. It is like then you come with the bad special effects that just makes it worse. And I'm like, dude, like if you could have just wrote a storyline, you probably would have had me more compelled and it would have been more compelling than these cheesy popcorn type of scare tactics. And
Mhm.
he's behind the corner and it just doesn't work anymore. So
Yeah.
um
But
it's crazy.
if you really think about it, some of the big franchises that we know today
Hmm.
started as independent horror
True.
films.
That's very true. Very true. And I mean, and that's the flip side of it. If you can put in some good work and get some good storylines, you can grow and
Hmm.
develop into something much larger. Man, I mean, Graveyard, this has been time flies. I'm sitting here looking at the time, and time flies. We're on the back end of the conversation. But before we close out, I want to allow you to take a minute,
Hmm.
just to share. Is there anything that you would like to share that maybe I didn't ask you today, with our audience, man? I want to give you a moment to share anything or say anything and leave your social media as well. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes. We want our audience to go out and follow and support the work that you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm really proud of everything we're doing with horror dads and stuff like that. But also, you can't really say because I'm cut off here. But the Mostly Pod Out Night Mostly podcast. I said
Mm-hmm.
we just recorded 120 episodes so far,
Congrats.
and we are seemingly growing in some way. I'm looking at the numbers. We're supposedly on 5 continents at this point in time.
Okay. All right.
Um,
Congrats.
yeah, yeah. I wish I saw anything from it, but it's a great thing, and I invite people to listen to it because we give weekly ratings to stuff, and I like to have more audience interaction too. Just because I had a special guest for the very first time, like a legit movie critic, come on to
Okay.
our show and do a bonus episode. So
Wow.
it's
Love that.
interesting how we do it versus a guy who gets paid to do it.
That's awesome, man. I got to tune into that one, man. I got to check that one out. I
Yeah,
love that, man. Well, look, Graveyard, it's been a pleasure.
thank
I
you for
wish
having me.
you look, thank you for joining us, man. You're part of Two Mics Up family. You're always welcome to come back. Anytime you have any new projects or anything you want to talk about, you're more than welcome to come back, man. Thank you again for taking time out of your afternoon to sit here and rock with us tonight, here on Two Mics Up.
Thanks for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Another episode of Two Mics Up. I'm your humble host, Damon Cunningham, aka Dame D NYDC. It's Two Mics Up, man. Season 7 is rolling along, as you can see on the Mogul TV Global Network. We are the #1 network for positive programming, and you're watching this on my new channel, the Infusion TV channel. We rocking in 45 countries. We are on Amazon and Roku TV device, 100 million viewable subscribers. We growing and growing and growing. Just added a new show to the channel. Check us out. Download the Mogul TV Global app on your Amazon or Roku TV Fire device today while it's still free, and check out the network. Check out all of the positive content that we're bringing to you each and every day throughout the week. And as we close out, I'm going to leave you with a couple of things, ladies and gentlemen, that I always leave you with at the end of each and every show. May you all stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.
007.